Poison Rana.
Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of Eagles Don't Hunt Flies, the show all about the life and career of Jon Moxley, right here on the Poison Rana Network. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm your host, Martin Bushby. Joining me are the Ambrose, Dickie Bird, Brandon from New Jersey. Happy New Year, fellas. How is it? New Year, new you, Brandon.
I might. Yeah. New year, new me. New JP. What's going on, man? 2025 is upon us. The great winter solstice has hit us all, including you. It's an incredible time to be alive, man. With the crazy weather going on around the world and whatnot. But yeah, I'm good to be here, man. How are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm fantastic. How are you, Dickie, mate? How's New Year down there in old Australia?
With your netball soccer jersey.
My netball soccer jersey. I mean, this, is a amazing El Desperado, soccer jersey. Blacksmith football jersey. I love this thing. You see the, for people listening on audio, this means nothing, but you can see all the rose print on the shirt. Very, very amazing.
It's like you're wearing a gold chain too.
Yeah, my wife says I look like someone from the Middle East wearing this.
Oh yeah, that gif of that guy walking out looking serious in the fucking Versace tracksuit. Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, I mean, New Year's was. I have a pregnant wife and a 2-year-old, so New Year's was not extremely exciting. Considering the 2-year-old gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning, he doesn't give a fuck what is going on. So yeah, I was in bed by 10:30 p.m. I watched some shows on my lovely new television I got for Black Friday, and that was it, But it's been raining here a lot, so I mean, if we want to complain about weather and stuff, I mean, I'm not complaining because everything looks nice and green, and the water the water tanks are full, so
excellent.
Yeah, it was great.
Glad to hear. What was that?
The dogs are in the enclosure.
I wish the dogs would have been in an enclosure, because then one of them wouldn't have got kicked in the face by a horse. But I don't need to go on about that. But yeah, if
the dog's okay though, isn't it? The dog's fine.
The dog is fine. The dog is fine. But my wife never watched that episode of Thunder where Terry Funk got kicked by a horse. So she is of the opinion that, like, it's totally fine. Why are you so scared of horses? And, she never saw this shit. So, and my dog fucked around and found out and got back kicked in the mouth by a horse and required three teeth to be surgically removed, and is drinking through a straw right now.
Did that episode of Thunder with Terry Funk? Did they really try to reenact the scene from Blazing Saddles when Mongo punched the horse?
Maybe.
You ever saw that movie, Dickie?
No.
Good movie.
Yeah, classic, all timer. Excuse me while I whip this out.
Is it in 4K? Because I might check it out.
You only watch things in 4K. They must have done a restoration of it. It's an all-timer.
Oh, absolutely.
I have a massive bone to pick, because like you got to sign up to these like 4K tiers on these streaming services. But then it's like, like Netflix. I think it's like Netflix doesn't have like Lord of the Rings in 4K. They have Lord of the Rings, but just in HD. And then there's this other streaming service which does have it in 4K, but you have to sign up to their 4K tier to get it. So There's a bit of a scam going on here, because I think it's like, these streaming services now obtain rights to certain qualities of certain films. So they might be sharing the same film on different streaming services, but only one of them will have the rights to 4K and the other will have rights to non-4K kind of thing.
I love how you went full on New Zealand stereotype. You're like, well, I've got to have Lord of the Rings in 4K.
I was trying to think of a film. Like it's Transformers and it's The Dark Knight are the three films that I can really kind of think of that you would want to watch in 4K.
You've got to have Transformers the animated film in 4K from 1987 or whatever that.
I mean, everything should. If you sign up to one of these things in 4K, if you sign up to one of these streaming services that have a 4K tier, like I mean, pretty much everything that can be 4K needs to be 4K. Otherwise, why are you paying an extra $10 a month? But
one shall rise, one shall fall.
There you go. Yep. Classic all-timer, best action sequence of all time, the Battle of Autobot City.
I had such a bone to pick with that movie because they killed off those characters just to make new toy lines.
I know. It was all a big ploy, weren't it? But still,
and then you bring Prime back. What kind of bullshit is that?
I know.
Spoilers.
I know.
Jeez.
Yeah. And the Return of Optimus Prime episodes were terrible. But anyway, shall we? What was World's End in 4K for you, Dickie? Or just regular HD?
No, unfortunately, no wrestling is shown in 4K. But I am going to try my hardest to watch as much Australian Open this year, which actually starts tomorrow because Centre Court will be streaming in 4K. But no wrestling is in 4K. But I did watch I actually watched some of Wrestle Dynasty on 4K. I watched the Kenny match, not on 4K, sorry. I watched it on my new TV and I was like, wow, it actually, but a big part of this is just because the last time I ever watched anything from New Japan World on a television set, I think New Japan World was streaming in 240p or something. Some ridiculous, like this was, it hasn't been long since New Japan has graduated to the HD family. For so long, it was one of the most rubbish looking things. And so, it's kind of like, it still looks, the lighting is still the same, like the whole arena, Tokyo Dome still looks the same, but it's in much better quality. So in theory, to me, it kind of was 4K compared to what I was used to watching. And believe it or not, I really haven't watched that much New Japan in the past year. Like even since this new New Japan World came about, I just, it was a really rough year last year. Once Okada left, well, that was tough.
Is the feeling restored for you?
Look, I think Gabe Kidd is probably an exciting person to want to watch from this point onwards. But they have a lot of ground to make up, and it's almost like they take one step forward and then there's like a couple of steps backwards. So what have they done to Sonata? Like you know what I mean? Like they elevated him last year or I guess the year prior, and he's back to just looking like his old LIJ self, but now he's in Bullet Club. And it just looks ridiculous. And it's a bit. He doesn't look like a real estate agent anymore, or a insurance underwriter. He just looks like a cyberpunk guy or something.
I'll never forget telling him that in person. He did not take kindly to.
So the feeling hasn't been restored. But I will inform everybody of this. My feeling has been destroyed across all wrestling right now. I'm not a fan of anything that's going on. And I'm expected to attend a wrestling event next month with AEW coming to Australia, and I'm not looking forward to it, mostly because I'll have to drive an hour just to get to where I'm going to be staying for the night. I think that, quite frankly, I wouldn't have been looking forward to even doing the show if it wasn't for what we will be discussing, which was, one of my, I guess, in terms of
good period.
The 2019 was a good period. I would say the following match that we'll be looking at, not so much, but did lead into what was going to be their hottest year, sort of thing. So I'm okay with coming in and talking about that. But generally, WWE, I'm just like, don't care. AEW just feels like it's running on empty. New Japan hasn't done enough to fix themselves. And just in general, I think even like the online wrestling chat, I'm very tired of. So I don't know. We can talk about something else if you want.
Well, you led me in perfectly there, because you've talked about Kenny coming back for New Japan. He's back in AEW after a long hiatus. So what better time to look back at his rivalry with Jon Moxley? I mean, this is going to be part one, as they've had, a number of matches in AEW over a few years. And rather than race through all of them in one episode, I thought it'd be good to give them a two-parter and give them time to breathe. And their rivalry, I mean, obviously, I've just mentioned their brand, and it has gone across over quite a few years in AEW, and I would have thought we are going to get them again in 2025, especially with Kenny coming back and everything. Surely one of the most memorable rivalries we've had in AEW. I can't think of many others other than sort of like Hangman Adam Page against Swerve Strickland and, a few of the other ones. But this has seemed to have encapsulated all of AEW since its existence.
With no love for the Pinnacle versus anyone, or
yes, or, yeah. Top 10 feuds in AEW, the Pinnacle against whoever. Yeah, that's up there.
Or the Inner Circle versus Eddie Kingston and his gang. Or
no.
But yeah, 5 years of this company. Yeah, this is probably one of the most fiercest rivalries in its existence. And you were always curious, like when Moxley came over to AEW, like how would he look against these new fresh opponents, and would he get out of the WWE style and like see what he would look like in a different style of professional wrestling? And boy, did it live up to it. It was some good wrestling from his end. It was very different, and both parties.
And I would like to add to that and just sort of say one of the appeals of AEW wasn't even. It was like dream matches, but then it was also like matches that you didn't know you needed. No one really thought about Dean Ambrose versus Jon Moxley. Dean Ambrose versus Kenny Omega. Dean Ambrose versus Jon Moxley is probably a title of his next book or something.
That's a GCW.
Yeah.
No one ever thought of Dean Ambrose versus Kenny Omega. But damn, when it kind of got paired up, you're kind of like, I'd sort of be quite interested in this. And there was a period of time where AEW was really putting together matches were either dream matches or they were matches that you didn't know you wanted to see. And I'd like to fast forward to today, where Kenny Omega has returned, and he's making his big in-ring return against who?
Brian Cage.
Brian Cage. Why? Like,
but you're building to something for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this my point.
Got a bit of ring rust, haven't they?
But look. There are plenty of talent in AEW who you can use as these sort of like interesting matches where you're building towards something, or a warm-up match or something. You know, I'm not saying next week he's returning and he's got to be facing Okada or Will Ospreay or something. You know, you've got plenty of guys. You've got, I don't know, the Beast Mortos. But his fucking return match against that guy, that's a one that you go, oh, okay, I'm down for this or whatever. But this, I guess my point is more, AEW's problem is that we just start to get these matches like that you kind of just go, I don't know if I'm, I don't know if I really care about this or have any intrigue. Sometimes they get it right. I would say Will Ospreay versus Buddy Matthews was an interesting one that I would have liked to have seen. But most of the time it is just like, oh, Will Ospreay's returning and he's facing Matt Sydal or something. And it's like,
hey, how dare you invent the Ospreay against Sydal for Red Pro all-time classics?
But I mean, I'm sorry, I put Will Ospreay versus Ricochet kind of in this bucket as well, where it's like, is Will Ospreay versus Ricochet a dream match?
Not
what
anymore,
do you build?
no.
Is it a dream match, or is it a match that happened quite a long time ago that everyone remembers, and we don't necessarily need to see it again? I think they
use that word "dream match" too. By the way, it's kind of like,
what do you want? How else do you want me to?
Not you. But I know.
I know. I guess the rant that I was really going on was not really around dream matches. That's what everybody gravitated towards. But what we got, and especially out of this feud that we're going to be talking about, was it's kind of like it's sort of like Steve Jobs was a genius because he said you don't give people what they want, you give people what they don't know that they want. And that's kind of wrestling as well, right? And this really fit into this category. Now, you tell me if anybody wants, Brian Cage versus Kenny Omega. But in this particular case, I never thought Kenny versus Moxley would work. And it never really crossed my mind, especially when Moxley was coming in. And, we probably won't touch on it because it's not part of the match. But, of course, when Jon Moxley came in, he first immediately went after Chris Jericho. And I think that was kind of like okay, like we've seen that plenty of times in the WWE. But then it was actually not him that he went after. It was the big brawl was with Kenny. And then you're kind of like, that's very interesting. So, yeah.
It is, because obviously this is before Dynamite had even started, and he debuted, like you just noted, he debuted by attacking Kenny at the conclusion of that match against Jericho at Double or Nothing in May 2019. And that's the memorable image. I mean, you put it in that amazing video you did for kicking off this podcast of throwing Kenny off the Double or Nothing poker chip. That's a brilliant image that AEW used to this day, and obviously used to great effect by you there. And
right.
Then obviously we got Kenny getting revenge on Mox by attacking him after the match against Joey Janela at Fyter Fest, and they were actually scheduled to have a match at All Out on the 31st of August in 2019. But something that I'd actually forgotten about, Moxley had to pull out of the match due to an MRSA staph infection, and Pac was Mox's replacement for that match, and actually beat Kenny.
What a disappointment!
And you always got to pull out, because if you stay in there, then you're cheating with pregnancies and stuff like that.
Keep going.
Especially
and also, Steve Jobs. The greatness of Steve Jobs was he didn't bend the knee to autocrats and stuff like that, like his predecessor Tim Cook.
Yep.
I mean, Apple's just become a corporate, machine like everything else. So
Yep.
no expectations.
They're not your friends, these corporations, Brandon.
So always pull out, and if you're a Mormon, soak in the glory.
Especially if it's infected, yeah, definitely pull out.
Or if you're a man, stick in this. Hang tight.
Anyway.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Where are you leading with this, Brandon? Right. So Mox does return from the infection that he had. He returned at the end of the main event of the first ever episode of Dynamite on October the 2nd, attacking Kenny after his 6-man tag with the Bucks against Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz. Remember those two guys? And they brawl through the crowd, and Mox paradigm shifts Kenny through a glass table in what they were calling the VIP area, and then it's on now. This match is on between Kenny and Mox, and the week after, Mox has a match with Sean Spears. It's funny. You're talking about poor matches to put debuting people into. I mean, fucking Mox against Sean Spears, but obviously that was all. Yeah.
I mean, that's just politics. I think that one is that's just Cody's buddy, and
Now he's a Greek mob boss in NXT, right?
Of course, he is a Greek
and
mob
they're called
boss.
Chobani
Yogurt. Amazing. Well, at the end of that match, Kenny comes out with a barbed wire broom and a barbed wire baseball bat and hands the bat to Mox. And it's sort of like a lot of people are involved in this build. You've got Pac involved in the build, taking out Kenny a few times and pissing off Mox, who just wants Kenny to himself. After one of the episodes of Dynamite, we see Mox walking backstage and a crew hand says, "Tony wants to see you." And we see Mox walking into an office and he slams the door behind him and we can hear the two talking. And Tony tells Mox that, there's too much between him and Kenny and the match isn't going to count. It's not going to be on the record. It's going to be unsanctioned. And Mox is like, "What? I've come after your boy and you do this to me. It's not even going to count. But, your blood is, the blood of Kenny Omega is going to be on your hands." And I was trying to remember watching all this back now and refreshing my memory about Dynamite and AEW in 2019, because obviously it's a fair few years ago now. It feels like it's in recent memory, but it's not, it's still quite a few years ago. But was this, Tony hadn't been on telly at this point, had he? I think this was the first, we were just hearing his voice here talking to Moxley about things. Can anyone remember?
That was the first something recognition, even because I remember it being. One of my favorite things is remembering some of people's complaints that they had in 2019 Dynamite, and then thinking now to 2025. They would pay $1 million to have those complaints, basically. So I remember this being Tony's first something recognition, because people were like, "Oh, he said that he was not going to be an on-screen character and he wasn't going to take away, he wasn't going to be like the authority of, the McMahons and all that sort of stuff." And well, we heard his voice, and it was like, and I obviously thought that was a dumb argument, and I actually liked this because it is, you're not seeing him on screen. The cameras aren't allowed to go into his office. You only hear, what you aren't supposed to hear from our perspective. So I don't have a problem with it, but a lot of people were like, meh, 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 meh. Little did they know it would get a lot worse.
It was akin to Vince Russo when he was on those old Nitros. All you heard was his voice, and LaParca standing in the back like a lampshade.
Oh yeah, it was actually. I'd not even thought about that, but yeah, that's true. Tony was obviously being heavily influenced by Russo around this time. But yeah, if those fans only knew when they were when they were watching this, they were going to be getting Tony in a neck brace, and he was going to be involved in all sorts of angles. Yep, indeed. I mean, on the next Dynamite, Mox then cuts a promo and he really latches onto that unsanctioned word. And he says when he beats Omega, they're going to pretend it never happened. He says he's been dealing with BS like that for years. back in the old place, back in New York, and that AEW can take their win-loss record and shove it up their ass, and he's unsanctionable. And again, he reiterates that Omega's blood will be on AEW's hand. And what I'd totally forgotten about, and I couldn't believe it, the go-home Dynamite for Full Gear is absolutely wild. At the end of the show, for the last sort of like 10, 15 minutes, you basically have everyone who's involved in a major match for the pay-per-view having this like wild brawl around the ring and the ringside area. I mean, you've got Cody attacking Jericho, Mox attacking Omega, the Bucks fighting off Santana and Ortiz, MJF coming out to help Cody. I mean, it's absolute chaos, but the crowd is going absolutely wild. Yeah, exactly. And I'd forgotten this had even happened, and it was great. It was a fantastic go-home show. It reminded you of like one of those wild nitros from like 1997 or something. A really hot Dynamite in an arena, Brandon. I mean, just going back, it was so exciting time to be an AEW.
House lights were on too.
Yeah.
That was definitely an incredible thing that they don't really do that anymore, do they?
No.
Well, I don't know, Brandon. You watch Rampage.
Yeah, I don't think they have pull-aparts like that. They just have
Well, did you watch the last ever episode of Rampage, which was in fact the go-home show for World's End, and they did have a pull-apart with people in the main event. However, it also featured Evil Uno, Action Andretti, fucking John Silver, Top Flight, and a bunch of people. But this is the point: a bunch of people not involved in the top 3 matches of the card. So
I disagree with you. A full circle moment though, when they were the dock workers protesting and waiting for the Death Riders to come into the parking lot. So in essence, they were there from the beginning when this whole entire takeover started brewing.
But okay, well, anyway, the point that I was going to make to what Martin was saying was they had they do actually do a lot of these brawls. I mean, I remember the end of Forbidden Door. The first Forbidden Door was the go-home show to Blood and Guts on Dynamite. So they had a brawl at the end of that to lead into the thing, which was Tanahashi is just standing in the ring like, what?
I remember that, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But the reason why this was actually very good, the one that Martin's referencing for the go-home show for the Full Gear, is because the brawl involved, participants in the top 3 matches of the card. So the idea being that it's selling not just the main event, but those top 3, major matches. And MJF and Pac were also like fighting each other. I don't think they had a match on the card. Did they? I don't remember that one. No, but they were still players within the feud of sorts. Like Pat was kind of involved with Kenny and Moxley stuff. Obviously, MJF was Cody's second and would play a big role in that match against Jericho. So that in some ways made sense too. But yeah, nowadays they do these brawls, but they're mostly filled with geeks that don't have anything to do with kind of like the set. So they don't have anything to do with like the selling point of the pay-per-view. So they may have been dock workers, but I don't know what that means to me spending money to buy a pay-per-view for a match.
I don't know, man. I'm just saying though, man. They were just
I don't know, man. I'm just JP.
They were there on strike. And they took a beating from the Death Riders. And
maybe they can go to Canada and deliver some mail or something.
Right,
is that still going on? I don't know.
No, it's over. It's over.
Oh, okay.
They reached a peace accord.
A peace accord between America and Canada. I'm glad to hear it. But we are into this first match, Full Gear, lights out, unsanctioned match, November the 9th, at the Royal Pharma Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. Jordan Goodman country here, Brandon. I mean, I'm assuming you've been to Baltimore Arena. Have you ever been? I'm assuming you've been to Baltimore, rather. Have you ever been to the Royal Farmer Arena?
So Royal Farms is a Wawa substitute in the Maryland, Virginia area. And Wawa made a promise saying that they would never go up that part of the country.
Oh.
And in essence, Wawa said, fuck you, we're coming to Maryland. And they built the first Wawa on the 95 corridor. And then Royal Farms was like, well, fuck you, we're coming out your way. And there's like 6 Royal Farms in the South Jersey area. And Royal Farms is known for their crispy chicken, which is tremendous. And it's basically a chicken version. Gary, there it is right there of Wawa. But
I've never known gas station eateries to swear so much at each other.
Oh yeah, and I have been to Maryland, Baltimore, the Baltimore Aquarium. Shout out to that. Great place. I remember I bought my first Dick Tracy comic at the Baltimore Aquarium. I remember one time we were waiting outside and there was this dude in a trench coat and he was asking me if I wanted to buy gold watches from him. And my dad said no. And so we went back into the aquarium.
So what, your dad just turned up behind you and just went, nah, you don't want no watches. Did your dad buy a watch, though?
He's like, you don't want to deal with these street carnies, Brandon. Let's go watch some white orca whales.
Right. Do you feel bad about that now after watching Blackfish or whatever?
I do. Yeah, you know what? Though? It's not like freaking... I know this is the craziest tangent to talk about the Royal Farms Arena, but yeah, I agree with you. I did feel kind of bad, but it's not like SeaWorld. I mean, there's still like tropical fish in the aquariums and stuff like that, and they're treated humane. Like they're not like making them do tricks and stuff like that.
Right, got you.
Like at the
so you've never been to the Royal Farm Arena, then?
No. But I've been to Joe's. What's that? The famous seafood place where Excalibur beat up that dude, that British dude. What's his name? He choked him out.
Oh, Jimmy Havoc.
Yeah, Jimmy Havoc. He got choked out at that restaurant.
Well, Jimmy Seafood. I thought they were all over America, not just in Baltimore.
That's more of a Maryland staple, but Jimmy Seafood is pretty good.
Is it? Yeah. Is Baltimore the biggest city in Maryland then?
Yeah. I mean, you would want to go to other parts of Maryland, like Landover and Bel Air and stuff like that. I mean, some parts of Baltimore are cool, like where the Orioles play at, but some are not so cool, like like in the TV show The Wire.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that The Wire set in Maryland?
David Simon created show.
Yeah, The Corner as well. That's
what a weird segue.
So
swept, mate.
I thought that was a perfect segue. I mean, there was a perfect tangent. It wasn't a segue. We're not segueing to something. It was a perfect tangent, though. When else are you going to talk about this? I think that was the perfect time.
What if we rolled on segues to the Royal Farms Arena?
We learned a load there.
No, never mind. It's right. No.
I learned a load there because I didn't realize there was such like gas station wars in America. But
oh yeah, man.
That could be a right show. Like you could be like the Guy Fieri of like doing. You could go around all these gas stations in America and rate them or something. Yeah, there you go.
The true warfare between the gas stations is Sheetz versus Wawa.
Right.
That's in the
go on.
That's in the upper Pennsylvania area where Dickie used to live at. In Reading area.
So what's their beef then?
Well, Sheetz claims that they have better menu than Wawa and stuff like that. But Wawa does have pizza.
Oh my god, that's vicious. They claim they've got a better menu. Fucking hell. It's wild.
Isn't the pizza
it's like the Wild West?
Isn't the pizza bad?
Yeah, my brother got the shits from eating a pie from Wawa. So I don't recommend that.
I mean, it's gas station food. I wouldn't recommend.
No, their hoagies are pretty good, are decent.
Okay, but it's gas station food. Like,
yeah, but you're not actually in the gas. It's not like freaking 7-Eleven or what's the other gas station? Whatever. But
I understand that you're grading this on a curve, but the curve is gas station food. So
But
I understand
remember,
that
like
it's
in
the better
COVID,
of
we
gas station food than other gas station food, but it's
But
still
like in
gas station
COVID-
food.
But like in COVID, we got to flatten the curve.
I mean, we should flatten the curve with everything, but unfortunately, the society doesn't work like that. Someone always has to lose, and someone always has to win.
Yes, like they would have to in this match at the Royal Farm Arena that we've.
Brilliant.
So people's mileage, I think, varies on this match, and and we'll certainly go through, the big reaction it had at the time after we've gone through the match, and it all depends if you like death matches or not. Mox enters this one through the crowd with his blue camo trousers he had at the time. Were you a fan of these, Dickie? Though he had these for like the first year of AEW. I feel like these blue camo and then he had some little badges on them, like he was like they were very like military style, weren't they?
The lead up to this match, he was wearing his bicycle trunks.
Oh yeah, he was, wasn't he?
He had the quads. He had the quads out. The lore of this show that we do. I'm a big fan of Jon Moxley's quads.
You are.
But I think he knew what he was going to be doing in this match and went, I'm not going to wear a shirt, even though I should, but I'm not a fucking t-shirt wrestler. But probably should wear some pants. And it seems like they stuck after this. And I don't mind them. When it comes to Jon Moxley's attire, he's pretty much, he's worn almost everything. And we've seen a lot of it on these shows. But it's a lot better than the fucking jeans, the skinny jeans that he wore in WWE. And it's a lot better than these green khaki these dress pants that he's wearing, which I'm surprised he's not wrestling in Dockers as well. While he's at it.
They look like Dockers. They're like unpleated slacks he wears now. I like that outfit. I didn't like the fatigue pants that he wore for this event, and I am like you, a fan of the the Quadzilla.
Quadzilla. Are you not a camo fan then, Brandon? You don't like white camo, blue camo, the traditional green camo? You're not a fan of any of that sort of stuff?
I like the British digital camo. Those are pretty dope.
The what?
The British digital camo that you guys wore in the Gulf War.
I have no idea what that is. What color was that? Was it sand color?
Is that the British green? Is it green?
What foliage is your military uniforms color?
I've got absolutely no. Having never been in the military, I've got absolutely no idea.
Have you not?
No. I'm assuming they just wear the same camouflage that everyone else wears. The green stuff when they're in the jungle, and then the sort of like desert stuff when they're in the desert.
The light green fatigue foliage.
Yeah, do they? Oh, it's the different shades of green to the green camo. I had no idea. I thought it was just like dark green and black.
Like the Americans have the sand color fatigues in the desert.
I would have thought everyone's got that in the desert because it blends in with sand. Anyway, so yeah, Mox is wearing the blue camo, which I'm assuming you wear in the sea because it blends in with the sea.
He was like Guile from Street Fighter with those pants on.
He was actually, yeah. He just needed that big hair that Guile had, but sadly.
No, it was reclining. It was reclining, declining at that point.
Yeah.
I'm reclining.
So we've got Excalibur and JR on commentary, and JR says this is going to be bowling shoe ugly. I mean, yeah, bowling shoes are pretty ugly. I agree with JR there. So it's going to be
JR sounded good
ugly.
compared to what he does nowadays.
JR sounded good. Yeah. And he started off quite good. And unfortunately, his commentary in this was quite quite classic.
He was playing all the greatest hits, weren't he? Scolded dog, bowling shoe ugly, all that sort of stuff.
He also did this thing where he said it was after Moxley started bleeding from the back of his neck. Sorry to jump ahead, but he said, some drunk guy some drunk guy's wondering, how do they do that? Is what he said, which is like the equivalent of after Mick Foley fell off Hell in a Cell, and he said, they say they know how to fall or whatever, and stuff like that. It's just, he was on one. JR was on one. But yeah, to Brandon's point, nowadays he sounds quite subdued compared to this JR.
Yeah, he was quite animated in this one, just him and Excalibur, weren't it? And obviously this match is all about carnage, plunder, big spots with weapons, proper CZW style match on a big scale. And we'll just go through the big spots. It's quite a long match, almost an hour match. And so Mox gets Kenny with a lot of barbed wire baseball bat shots. This is the barbed wire bat that, had been a lot in the lead up, and Kenny bleeds from the back. And then Kenny gets his own back when he pulls out the barbed wire broom and bulldogs Moxley onto it, and then goes to work on Mox's back and head. And Mox bleeds, like Dickie just noted there, from the back of the head rather than his actual back. He gets the back of the head. What did you think about this? Obviously, the barbed wire bat goes back into deathmatch tradition. It's been used in a lot of death matches. But Kenny here with barbed wire broom, he's the cleaner sweeping up, and now he's sweeping up Mox's skin off the back of his neck, Brandon, with the broom. Do you feel like it worked, or it was a bit too comedy for this match? Kenny larking about with the barbed wire broom that he had.
Yeah, I was not familiar with Kenny Omega's game with the deathmatch stuff, like, because I wasn't watching DDT or whatever. But I mean, it felt. I think it fit in with the whole. I didn't think it was too much comedy. I dug it. He is the cleaner, right? I mean,
you are not alone, Brandon, because not a lot of people were familiar with Kenny Omega's game at this point, and they were not expecting this match.
It's like you got to live, like, you got to wake up at like 2 a.m. to watch New Japan, and a lot of people on our time zone weren't. And then when you see this guy with this incredible physique and mullet, Canadian, and doing all this stuff, all these spots on American soil, like, dude's a machine. Like, you're opening new eyes to.
So the thing is, though, people were familiar with his New Japan game, which did not include brooms covered in barbed wire, because that's not really, New Japan like barely allows people to blade. And so, like, one of their most prominent deathmatch wrestlers is the man whose shirt I'm wearing, El Desperado. If you just watch New Japan, though, you would not know this at all. So I guess the point is more that, even if people were familiar with Kenny, they would probably only be familiar with Wrestle Kingdom Kenny, because that's probably the extent of what they tuned into at 2 o'clock in the morning. But no one was aware of DDT Pro Wrestling Kenny, which is what we got here.
Oh yeah,
and it
I'd
was
say
amazing.
It's more PWG Kenny, to be honest with you. He was doing a lot of these jokey type death matches in PWG.
Watch is that though, man?
That's
like that comes out. Like,
you can't watch that.
With the,
I guess you could,
chainsaw and everything. I know Braden Harrington was a big fan of the Kenny Omega toy chainsaw in the match he had in PWG.
Yeah, I would say much of a muchness. One is the Japanese version, and one is the North American version in terms of Kenny. That's, and it's almost like everyone and all the AEW fans just thought we were going to get New Japan Kenny in AEW, and we're quite shocked by this. And I remember, and again, I said before about AEW would pay millions of dollars to have the kind of problems, quote unquote, or controversies that they had back in 2019. The controversy coming out of this match was it good or was it not? There were people, it was not their cup of tea. They appreciated it. It was not their thing, but nowadays, like, you watch this match and you're just like, I would take this any day of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's an incredible match. It doesn't really matter one way or another. But I think a lot of people going into this match thought we were gonna get New Japan Kenny versus Jon Moxley, and we got a different version of Kenny versus Jon Moxley, and that he kind of, I don't want to say he changed his style, because this is Kenny's style, but just not one that people are aware of, but more that he came to do a Jon Moxley match, not Moxley came to do a Kenny Omega match kind of thing.
Well, that was the story, weren't it, in their rivalry, because obviously in the next match we'll get to it, that was supposed to be more of a sort of like Kenny Omega style match. But anyway, more spots in this. We get a massive board covered with about 20 mouse traps, all set to snap, and Kenny gets slammed on this by Mox. I mean, I don't think I'd ever seen. I've watched a lot of deathmatch stuff. I'd never seen this one before. I mean, Excalibur was going a bit mental. He was saying there was like 50 to 60 mouse traps on there, but yeah, it was clearly about 20,
I think it was there was over 2,000 mouse traps on that board. I think.
I mean, there must have been, yeah.
And whenever you fall on them, like in these mouse traps, like they never snap in the appropriate spots, like they're supposed to either. Like...
No, but if you're Kenny Omega, you're a fucking psychopath. So you move around heaps, and then you turn over, and you make sure that your fingers actually do get into them when they're snapping, and that's what he did.
How many mouse traps have you fallen on, Brandon? Then you sound like you're talking from experience there.
What was the WWE match? The giant mouse trap? Was that
Johnny Knoxville and
Johnny Knoxville?
Sami Zayn?
Oh yeah, classic. So Mox pulls out some gold chain that Excalibur calls anchor chains, and these are really big, thick, like gold chains, and they take turns choking each other out with them and whipping each other, and then Kenny even does the old Mox thing that we've seen a load of time in the Mox CZW death matches. He sort of like chucks Mox over the ropes and appears like he's choking Mox to death with the chain. Then Kenny whips out a bag of broken glass, and this is allegedly the glass from the table that Mox put him through weeks before, but I doubt it. I think it was just some new glass. And then Kenny pours it all out.
Are you saying wrestling's fake?
Maybe just a tinty-wincy bit. They might lie a bit in some of the commentary that they do. Kenny pours it all out, spine busters John on it before dragging his back through it, and they did everything with this, didn't they? Dragging Mox's back through it. But I kind of feel like because Kenny had crushed the glass up and it had just gone into like smithereens, they didn't do. They were trying to obviously get a load of juice on Mox's back, similar to that three-way death match we watched on our first ever show, but it didn't quite come. But yeah, still a pretty sick spot here. I mean, not as sick as Kenny grabbing a load of this glass and shoving it into Mox's mouth, Brandon. I mean, that was absolutely disgusting.
Oh man, that is a gnarly spot.
The glass between the fingers is also very disgusting.
It's not. Yeah, it's gross. But on the ramp, I missed this AEW ramp. I used to love the fact that they had this old school WCW ramp. R.I.P. the ramp. Kenny takes an ice pick to Mox's forehead. And, well, we think it's an ice pick because JR and Excalibur argue over whether it's an ice pick or a screwdriver. And then Excalibur goes, whatever, it's an object of destruction. So well done for
an international object.
A ship.
Yeah. Clearing that up for us. And Kenny then calls for his elite friends. He's going, come on. And the Bucks and Hangman come to bring something out, but they say, no, Kenny, you've gone too far, mate. And then they go, all right, then we'll do it. And they bring out what Excalibur describes as a barbed wire spider web. And basically, this is a massive apparatus with a ton of barbed wire on it, like the most barbed wire you've ever seen on some kind of apparatus like this. It looks originally, when they first bring it out, it looks like some kind of barbed wire trampoline. And Kenny goes for a one-winged angel, but Mox counters it into a suplex off the ramp into the barbed wire. And Dickie, this was the big image from the match, wasn't it? It's got a load of replay and stuff, and it was a fantastic looking spot, I thought.
I thought it was a fantastic looking spot, but it was probably top 3 in the, it was probably the 3rd of my favorite spots in this. And the other 2 are yet to come, sort of thing. But a nightmare to get out of, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
This was the kind of the thing that Brandon Cutler there, just happy to have a job, but he's trying to get these people out, and then it's like this is an occupational hazard for these like security helpers, whatever they're doing. You've got to try and we've seen Pac leading up to this match in some of the lead up matches, like it was in a tag match against Kenny and Hangman, I think, and he grabbed one of the baseball bat barbed wire from Jon Moxley to prevent their team from getting disqualified, and he grabbed it from the barbed wire and he split his finger wide open. Like, you saw this on Dynamite, like it was pretty bad. And so you got these helpers in this match trying to get these 2 dudes out of the spider web, and they don't use fake barbed wire in these fucking matches when maybe they should, but they don't.
Real barbed wire, Crimea River.
Exactly. And then afterwards, after they finally get these 2 guys out, Jon Moxley beats the shit out of them.
He proper nails one of the guys as well. He just fucking levers him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would be going and getting a job at Wawa after this.
Or Royal Farm, yeah. So after because just like there, Dickie, the barbed wire is in, is stuck into the backs and stuff. Even though it doesn't look like it after, because obviously they're constantly going to get blood from their backs, but it doesn't seem to be quite happening for them in this match. Because then they're back to their feet, and there, Mox just fucking levers all these guys who just helped him out of the wire. What a guy. And they're back to the feet, and Kenny hits a V trigger through the massive Full Gear plexiglass sign that's got a big light in it, entranceway. Another big, fantastic spot. This was spectacular. This was my second favorite spot of this match. Just because it's, the thing is like, to me, and I've said this before, and I said this on our first episode, I think, with Nick Gage and Moxley. Drake. It's like, yep.
Yes, I wasn't going to say it, but anyway, what I want from death matches is creativity, and I am not going to shit on the spider web stuff or the Nate web. I'm not going to shit on that spot because it's a big spot and it looks spectacular and all that sort of stuff. But I would sort of say it's kind of low on the creativity level. They just wheel this thing out there and someone gets suplexed onto it, and that's fine. It's more of the stuff that kind of just like comes out of nowhere. And him getting V-triggered through this part of the set that is just, it has been there the whole night. It's part, it's like a light, it's like a Full Gear, kind of like stained, like plastic that's got a light coming through it, sort of part of the set. Like, you're not expecting someone to get V-triggered through this thing. And it's just spectacular. And you're just like, whoa, what the fuck? And then, just amazing. And Kenny eats shit as well going through it. He's the one delivering the move, and he eats shit because his head smashes on part of the frame as they both go through it. But it was amazing.
He's got to be a strong ape to be able to pick that man up and then do that. It's incredible.
I do feel like AEW and a few of these matches we have talked about when we talked about Mox and AEW, they did used to have a lot more of this sort of like set stuff at the side. And I feel like they don't have as much anymore. And it was perfect for stuff like this, I suppose, cost-cutting matches and things like that. But back in the ring, Mox hits a paradigm shift for 2. Mox then starts to cut away the ring canvas, and he literally goes around the whole ring and cuts away all the canvas from the ring and pulls it back to expose the hardwood board. And JR's like, "Ooh, you're really getting to see the inner workings of a ring here." And Mox then goes for a Gotch-style pile driver, but Kenny backdrops him onto the exposed hardwood. Kenny then hits a DDT on the wood for 2. Kenny then misses a Phoenix splash onto the wood, which looks horrendous.
This was my number one favorite spot. That was fucked up for him to do that. A Phoenix Splash. Not only we don't see Kenny even do Phoenix Splashes, let alone one that misses, and he eats shit on the fucking bare canvas. His face hits that shit hard. That was just like, holy shit. You know, this guy is insane. Great.
Seeing the autopsy of the ring, you wonder why all these guys have scoliosis in the back, taking all those bumps on that wood like that. Looks like a freaking
well, they know how to fall. So.
Right.
They know how to fall off a 20-foot ladder, don't they?
Why do we fall down?
It doesn't look like when he pulls all the canvas up, it doesn't look like there's much padding in it. So and after Kenny eats shit in the wood, Mox then hits a massive elevated paradigm shift onto the wood for the win, and I really enjoyed this. Obviously, tons of fun deathmatch spots that we've just gone through there. It's way too long. I feel like they could have done with about 10 minutes cutting out. I mean, it's nearly an hour-long match. They could have cut down some of the crowd brawling and stuff at the start, but I get, they wanted to build up to the big spots rather than just go bang, bang, bang straight into them, which is what we sort of typically see in a Mox CZW match, but not for everyone. And like Dickie's sort of like alluded to, there was a fair amount of uproar over this match, by a lot of wrestling sites, and saying had they gone too far with this, for a big wrestling company. Little did they know they were going to see a man put a hypodermic needle through another man's cheek, which is what we'd get from AEW last year or the year before. But Brandon, thoughts on this match? Did you enjoy it? We watched quite a few deathmatch stuff in this, and I'd say this is up there. Obviously, they've got the budget to put bigger things together, haven't they? In this than your CZWs and the like.
Yeah, like Dickie said, you in a deathmatch you want creativity, and this is definitely a sanitized version of a deathmatch for pay-per-view and pay-per-view people's eyes. I mean, you don't want an overkill of a CZW like death match. But this match is absolutely incredible. I loved it.
This is going to be up there with Jon Moxley's best matches.
It's got to be up there with the best matches of AEW, period.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of fucking amazing matches from AEW, but in terms of it doesn't get talked about enough. When you talk about Moxley, you talk about his match with like Ishii, his match with Hangman, the death matches. What else am I forgetting?
Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, but
the exploding ring.
I mean, the exploding ring match was pretty good, but I think there was something else that kind of ruins the allure of that. But I mean, this is up there. Like, this is top 3. I feel. I think this is better than Eddie Kingston and all that sort of stuff.
Wow!
Because first of all, it is a Jon Moxley match. This is his thing, and I'm sure he had a great time. Don't get me wrong. I think there's like a lot that are kind of like in that number 4, number 5 spot. I don't even remember his match with Shingo. At the start of last year or something, that was a banger, and his match with I think both of his matches with El Desperado, I think he's had 2, were incredible. So but again, they're all those ones that I just mentioned. Those are all Jon Moxley matches. They're all death matches. So he has a style, and I think he almost at this point maybe he needs to stick to it, because I mean, we brushed over at the start. This, whatever he's doing in AEW at the moment is death now. It just needs to. Yeah. It has not worked, and
I think you can even see that with him. I think the good thing we had with this Death Rider stuff, with the promos he was doing and stuff, and the whole story might not have been working, but you could always rely he was doing good promos and he seemed into it. But even now, he seems like he's not into it anymore.
And he's got a big match coming up this Wednesday for the Chili convention in Cincinnati
against powerhouse ops, right? Okay.
Right.
But one of the things that I thought was interesting as well, because I know we're probably about to now sort of pivot away and go 13 months into the future. But before we move away from that, I mean, watching the build to this match, because it was more than just, Moxley comes in and attacks Kenny at Double or Nothing, and then they, build to the match or whatever. There was a lot of Mox. One of these promo segments, Peter Avalon was in the ring, the librarian or whatever. He was in the ring, and then the crowd, and then the camera just cuts to Moxley just coming through the crowd with a weapon in his hand, and the crowd just starts going nuts. And he just comes in, he beats the shit out of this guy. Nothing to do with anything. He was I truly believe he was the closest we ever got to a Steve Austin type character. Not close. Like, he wasn't anywhere close in terms of hotness or business sort of thing. But in terms of just turning up, kicking ass, and people just going crazy for him, and then he just cuts a hell of a promo and leaves. That was Steve Austin's mantra. That's what Jon Moxley was doing at this time. And to your point, Martin, like, you could count on him to just show up, cut a killer promo, and then fuck right off. And people would be just like, wow, Jon Moxley's great. And, maybe what they're doing at the moment, what he's trying to do at the moment is a bit overcomplicated. But also maybe he just thinks like, he has to evolve. He probably thinks to himself, he has to evolve. And I don't actually think that's true. I think you think Steve Austin evolved? And anytime that he tried to, it wasn't
the heel turn, didn't they? They tried to do the heel turn and that just didn't work. So yeah, they should have stuck to what they were doing.
So anyway.
But yeah, I do think, and obviously Kenny coming back, I think the big thing for that is that obviously Kenny's going to beat Mox for the belt at some point, and we are going to get, the fifth singles match or whatever between them two. And yeah, I just think that needs to happen sooner rather than later. I mean, even going into Kenny's match with Okada, I think Kenny should probably have the belt at that point, because it's just not worked out with this Death Rider storyline at all, has it?
Well, Kenny definitely needs to have the belt. Like, the company needs to sort of reconfigure. They have all the pieces, okay? They're just not in the right places. And I think that's just really the key. And, there is too much emphasis on using people that no one gives a fuck about, and not really using people that are kind of key draws, to weekly TV shows. So yeah, I think that does. I think the problem is that, like, I don't know. I thought the whole point of the storyline was that it was the new, the new generation of AEW was going to step up and dethrone Mox, which I guess is Darby Allin, but he, is climbing a mountain at the moment or something. Yeah. So who knows? But I almost think that they should just abandon that altogether and just look. You don't have that much time left with Kenny. Just make him the fucking champion of your promotion. Because it's like, seeing him back in Japan, like, when I watched the match against Gabe Kidd, I said to myself, you know what? Kenny should just stay in Japan. And I don't mean that as a fuck AEW or anything like that. He just looked so much more in the right place, wrestling in the Tokyo Dome, in Japan, even though he was kind of like playing the anti-New Japan person, whatever, the crowd still loves him. Commentary basically said, and I'm not going to get into the commentary of that match, but commentary basically said the people in the building, all 20,000 of them in the Tokyo Dome for that Wrestle Dynasty show, bought tickets to see Kenny Omega. And so I guess my point more is, look, if you're going to have him in this North American company, I mean, just make him the guy. Like, don't get too stressed out about trying to make fucking Sammy Guevara the next generation of AEW. Which,
Sons of Texas, man, come on.
but remember the four pillars,
Right?
you know. And where are they now? It's kind of like Darby, I guess, is kind of almost ready, but I mean, it's just
The
just
sight of the
fucking
might.
just go back. Just go back. All right. But Brandon's getting bored, so I'll just shut up. We'll move on.
Absolutely not. I love it.
Nah, it's all right.
Come on, man.
But we did have
Jesus, what, Mike?
Oh my god, that's the worst accent I've ever heard in my life. But anyway, they did have that classic moment. The Death Riders have given us that classic moment of what was it? Looking at your phones while the tanks are rolling in or whatever.
Tanks are rolling in, Mike, and the people on their phones. Bloody hell!
Yeah. Oh dear. So the Full Gear rivalry ended for 2019, and then we go into 2020, and Mox went on to win the title from Jericho at Revolution. Omega teamed with Hangman and won the tag titles. Mox held the title for most of the year, and we jumped to November 2020, and Kenny's broken up with Hangman and beats him in a heavyweight title eliminator final at Full Gear 2020. So we've come back a full year round here, and watching some of the build for this one, AEW done a great package build for the Winter is Coming on YouTube, and Omega had these dancers with the brooms for his entrance around this time. I don't know if anybody else remembers that. That was hilarious. Should bring them back for 2025. Kenny with his little cheerleaders with their brooms sweeping up as he entered the ring.
They were hot too, man. Crazy man.
The rematch with Mox is set, and they have a brawl at a contract signing for the match, and Mox says Kenny needs to reach down and find the best bout machine to beat him this time, and we've got match number 2. Winter is Coming. Wednesday Night Dynamite on the 2nd of December 2020 at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. A cold Jacksonville, Florida. They had all these heaters at ringside, and obviously this is COVID times, so the crowd's minimal right at the back of the arena, and wrestlers are at ringside cheering and booing. Have you ever been to Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Brandon? Have you ever been to Jacksonville?
I've driven through Jacksonville. Yeah, it's on the way.
Where were you going?
Georgia.
From where?
From Hollywood, Florida, visiting my aunt.
Okay, right. This was
right. Yeah, you don't visit Jacksonville. You drive by.
No.
But yeah,
they've got a football team. They've got a lot of wrestling on there. Seems to be a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, well, Jaguars kind of a shitty franchise. I mean, what franchise fires their coach but keeps their GM? I mean, come on. Did they do that in soccer? Like, if you fired a manager, you fire everybody, right?
Well, the manager comes with like a team, and they kind of go with them.
Oh, you guys got a board of directors, like your
chairman and all that. Yeah, nobody's firing them. Yeah. They're kind of like the London team now, anyway, aren't they? The Jacksonville team, anyway. They're
what soccer team does he go? Everton,
Fulham.
And do the people like the cons in Fulham? I think they've tagged on to the fact that he's more involved with wrestling now. So they're like, oh, well, we're not going to sign anyone good this year because our owner's more interested in his fucking wrestling company. So, yeah, I think you get a lot of that from Fulham fans. But, yeah, they're doing all right. So they're in the Premier League. Right? You what? He wanks dogs, right?
Well, apparently, yeah, according to their fans, he does. Yeah, allegedly. He was disgusted about that.
But, yeah, when Jacksonville, you drive through it, you don't visit. I mean, it's pretty country type of city.
Not got any gas stations there, then.
They have Wawa's down there.
Right. Oh, Wawa's taking over America, isn't it? All in New Jersey, Florida, Philadelphia.
But they also have Publix too. Publix is pretty good. Whereas
a gas
station is not good.
Right. I'm noting all these down for next time I go through America.
That joke right there.
Yeah. Have they got what gas stations have they got in Vegas?
Circle K.
Ah, right. I'll be sure to hit one of them up in a couple of months. Anyway, enough about that. So the rematch with Mox is set. They have the Brawler contract signing. Obviously, after Kenny breaks up with Hangman, there's all this thing about like, oh, is he going to be the best bout machine again? You know, has he lost what it took to be the best wrestler of all time? And we've got Excalibur, Tony, and JR are joined by Don Callis on commentary, and this was him making his debut here because Don heavily involved with Impact Wrestling at the time, and comms are really playing up, how he's close with Kenny throughout the match. I think even at one point, Excalibur says Kenny's like an uncle. I mean, Don's like an uncle to Kenny, which was going a bit too far, I feel. But yeah, they go on about how close they are. They're both from Canada, how they've known each other for 20 years. And obviously, this is quite different to the Lights Out match. You know, there's some minimal brawling around the empty seats, which, you know, Mox keeps having to cut off to break the ref's count. You know, this is very much a straight up wrestling match for the most part. Kenny works Mox's knee, but then Mox counters Kenny's usual spots, such as the Terminator dive to the outside. So they're trying to show that each other's like figured each other out, and you know, Mox knows what spots Kenny's coming up with next, and Kenny's trying to ground Mox and stop him from doing his usual brawling and striking style, and really picks up for the last 10 minutes. Mox hits a paradigm shift for 2. He then goes and grabs 2 chairs, and they both sit down and have a slap fight in the middle of the ring, which I get they were trying to show who was the hardest out of them and who could take the most chops and punches, but I felt this was a bit daft in this match personally. Kenny then hits a V trigger and a Snapdragon suplex, but Mox hits a King Kong lariat, as Excalibur described it. Another paradigm shift for 2. Suicide dive into a V trigger on the outside, which looks spectacular. Kenny then hits a middle drop kick into Mox's shoulder. Tiger Driver 98 for 2. Multiple knees to Mox's head, but Mox counters the One-Winged Angel. However, Kenny hits another V-trigger and a Coit's Wrath. Only 2 again. Kenny then goes for a Phoenix Splash, but Mox knocks him off the top. Hits a paradigm shift onto the heaters that they've got at ringside that I mentioned earlier. It's called in Daly's place on that evening, apparently. And the doctor comes out to check on Kenny as he seems to be knocked unconscious. And Callis, at this point, leaves the commentary desk to check on Kenny as well. And this is where Excalibur says Don is essentially an uncle to Kenny, and that's why he's so concerned about him. Mox then shoves the ref away, throws Kenny back in the ring, starts hitting him in the head. Callis is on the ring apron with a microphone saying he's had enough, but Mox shoves him over. Kenny then grabs the microphone, levels Mox with it. The ref is distracted by Callis. Mox is busted open now, and then Kenny hits 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 V-triggers, and the One-Winged Angel for the win. New champion, Kenny Omega, ending Mox's lengthy reign with the belt. And I feel like the ending is what most people remember about this match, because Callis and Kenny immediately run out of the ring to the back, and Callis says, "You'll find out what happens on Impact Wrestling on Tuesday," before they speed off in a car. So good job here, keeping Mox strong. Everyone sort of like remembers more about this match, about the angle after, but Mox was kept strong with all the shenanigans after the match. But good match, I thought here. More straight up wrestling match. Obviously, we get the bit of daftness with the chairs in the middle of the match, but I thought really solid match here, Dickie.
My favorite part is, Kenny wins, and him and Don Callis, they rush out. They rush past Tony Khan, who's standing there. Commentary says Tony Khan is barking at them as they run by, but he appears to have a big smile on his face. It almost looks like he's going like, "A great match, Kenny," as they run by. They run by a whole bunch of people with masks on, so I can't identify them. And then they run out to the car park where a car is waiting for them. And the camera, steady camera is running with them, following them, which is like, yeah, you would, right? It's not like you've got cameras and stuff ready, in weird places to film this. You have to have a steady cam guy like run with them to sort of, get a really cool kind of like, chase scene kind of thing. But one person who was ready to interview them was Alex Marvez, who apparently lives in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Just pops out of nowhere. Like, oh, Kenny, what's going on? And my one of my favorite angles. I don't care what people say about what happened after this, but I love this. This was total like height of WCW shocking kind of stuff, where it's like Don Callis says, "We'll reveal all on Tuesday," and Alex Marvez is like, "Tuesday? But Dynamite's on Wednesday," and he's like, "No, we'll talk about it on Impact on Tuesdays." And then JR with the best line, "We just got jobbed." And it was like, yeah, you did. You got fucking jobbed out to fucking TNA, you fucking jobbers. Like, this was the best. I was just like, because what a heel move as well. It's not, oh, I'm taking this. If Kenny said, "I'm taking the title to New Japan," then it would be like, yay, we're going to get, whatever. But it's like, you're taking it to TNA? Fuck, you fucking heel. Like, who would do that? That's awful. So great. So great.
Yeah. It was.
This was during the belt collector thing, right?
But this was the start.
Right.
He didn't have any belts going into this. This was the first belt.
Right.
And then he went to Impact, as they just said. And then he won the Impact belt.
He won the Impact belt. Right. And then Don Callis mysteriously left Impact for reasons.
Allegedly.
Yep. But I think that was one of Impact's highest ever ratings, weren't it? When that Tuesday
I watched it live on
Kenny.
Twitch, baby.
Yeah, of course you did. Well, as the match as a whole, though, I thought it was some good work, and especially the final 10 minutes when they were going down the stretch for really, and the opening, it started off a bit slow with sort of like Mox constantly going out and battering Kenny around the chairs and stuff, and then coming in to break the count. That was a bit slow going, but I felt as a straight up sort of more wrestling match here, Brandon. I felt this was good stuff, and they were really trying to show that I feel, especially from Mox's side, I'm not just a deathmatch guy. I've got I can do sort of like straight up wrestling as well.
Oh, incredible! Yeah, it's a straight up wrestling match. I deeply enjoyed it. The first match I thought was better though.
You deeply enjoyed it, right?
Right. I dug it, but I like the first match better. But this one had a little bit of everything. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, a little bit of column C, a little bit of column D. But the first match, had my cup of tea, which had some definite hardcore violence and a lot of accoutrements.
The vibes were immaculate.
Feel my ubiquity.
Yeah, you felt your ubiquity. Jesus wept. What else is there? Anyone in the chat? Anyone got anything?
So we had we had two very different matches here. Obviously, the all-out death match, and then the second more of a wrestling match, two trying to break each other down. Enjoyable matches. The second, was almost half the match length of the other one, and you definitely get a good flavor of these two working different styles, good opponents for each other, and you can see why they do keep going back to this feud. So do you feel, going back, we're going to be talking about two more matches next time around, Dickie? I mean, surely going to happen again in 2025. Clearly onto a good thing with these two. They don't overstay the welcome. We have a big, there was literally a year between these matches, and then I think there was another year between the other matches, and maybe a few months before the fourth match. So they know when they've got a good thing, and they don't sort of ram it down your throats.
Sorry, just remembered something about Tom Hannafin. Anyway, so yeah, it is. The whole spacing is quite interesting. Remember, I mean, we had a pandemic in the middle of these two matches. I mean, obviously, the second match, Winter is Coming, the pandemic is still very much happening in the United States and will for pretty much until the middle of the next year. I think it was
2020 spring, right?
2021.
Oh, 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like Money in the Bank in WWE was like the first one back with crowds or something. Can't necessarily remember in AEW terms, but I mean, all I will say, and it is kind of a theme in the show to kind of look at Jon Moxley's physical appearance through this, because obviously we have the rehab, part of all of this, where we noted just beforehand, and then how he looked afterwards, and then how he looks now, which is the healthiest he's ever looked. But go back to that 2019, Moxley looks pretty good. He looks pretty good. Kenny looks fucking amazing. Yeah. He is shredded and he is trim. We skip forward. The pandemic was not kind to either of these guys. We obviously know that it was probably a big cause of it. Kind of escalated the issues that Moxley would end up facing near the start of 2022. At the end of at October 2021, he would come back at the start of 2022. But Kenny didn't look that. Kenny was looking pretty rough as well at this point. And again, I'm not shaming anybody. This is the pandemic. Like, this is what everybody had to deal with. But it is fascinating, like watching these two matches back to back, and there's effectively 13 months between them, how physically different both of these guys look. And then how they both look now, which is, for some reason, Kenny's head is twice as big now. He still looks in incredible shape, but he's big. His face is big. He's got the DK mode enabled from GoldenEye for some reason. But yeah, and it's important to also note that at this point, Kenny was also dealing with a lot of issues. Like, this is the height of his vertigo problems that he was having, and a whole bunch of other terrible things that he would need time off. I guess at the conclusion of his run after Hangman beats him, he pretty much kind of fades away and gets some surgeries and stuff like that, and then comes back. But yeah, he's dealing with a lot at this point as well. So it'll be interesting we've obviously got the barbed wire death match, which happens a few months afterwards. I believe that's the Revolution show in February. So this was December and then February. Also notable on this show, the Winter is Coming show, this was Sting's debut as well. He came. Yeah,
I was going to bring that up. I forgot to bring it up. Yeah, it was Sting's big debut, wasn't it?
So I watched that again, and that was pretty phenomenal. I was kind of surprised that wasn't the main event, but I guess they had an even bigger angle, and I think it was a bigger angle, really. I mean, what a fucking, like, to AEW's credit, like, I felt that they were still putting on actually really good television shows during the pandemic. Crowd or not, lack of talent or not, weird location or not, they still were managing to give you engaging stuff during the pandemic. I know this wasn't like peak pandemic, but it was still interesting TV. WWE at the time, it was just awful shit. A lot of pre-tape, and a lot of, pre-tape, Randy Orton setting the Fiend on fire and all this sort of shit. But yeah, credit to AEW, they were still a very good TV show despite a pandemic, going into what would be one of the most incredible years for any professional wrestling promotion that I've ever witnessed was 2021 AEW. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. It probably, you would say, close to 1997 WCW and maybe like 1999 WWE, 98, 99 WWE. But I would say it was even better than that because it wasn't filled with a bunch of fucking political bullshit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was time. So I kind of like how all of these matches are quite spaced out. And I don't even the problem is as well, this fourth match, I assume the fourth match that we're referring to is the cage match.
The cage match, yeah.
I don't even remember watching this match. I would have, but I can't tell you because it was just during this time where AEW was so down and I started to go down as well. And I don't really remember. But that fucking barbed wire death match and this shit, like I remember this back of my
big
hand.
Time. These are some of the big sort of like tentpole AEW moments, aren't they? Sort of like especially the lights out match and then the barbed wire death match. So, like you said, it is going to be really interesting going into these next two on our next episode. Because that cage match, I do vaguely remember watching it, but it's going to be interesting going back and watching that, especially to compare and contrast with the ones that we've already watched. Brandon, any final thoughts on these last two matches?
Well, you're talking about AEW back then too. The creative seemed like a lot tighter, and the roster like seemed like here's the guys we're gonna go with, and here's what we're gonna build, and this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna do it for a full year. And they seemed more in line than where they are.
Focused.
Yeah, they were more focused. They had their Adderall, definitely. Whereas right now, I mean, I guess they're getting back on track, but the roster's like.
But that's the thing, like they say they're getting back on track, and I kind of like felt that this whole Moxley Death Riders like thing was like it was going to start like we were entering the civil war period of AEW, and it was going to be like a. This side versus that side. And it just ended up being this tiny part of the product. You still had Chris Jericho had to do his thing, Swerve had to do his thing, and all this sort of stuff. And they weren't allowed to focus. There wasn't they're not doing this. They're just not.
Maybe Moxley's final boss is Chris Charlton, and we're gonna get that running like he did. He was preparing for during Wrestle Dynasty.
He might need to wear that. He might need to wear the gas mask then for that match.
Dressed up like Bane.
Mox against Chris Charlton in his New Japan tracksuit. Yeah, channeling the spirit of Inoki. Let's go. Fucking hell, yeah! That main event, they're down with that one. Yeah. We will be back next month talking about the next two matches in the Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega rivalry. But before we head out of here, I mean, we've been going live on YouTube tonight as we do for most of these shows. And thanks everyone for being in the chat. We've got to clear some stuff that's been said in the chat here, Brandon. I mean, my old buddy Benno's been out here saying, "Who is this handsome chap with the luscious locks playing the role of Brandon?"
Oh, it's Mike J. Pay, man.
It's not Brandon, it's a Head and Shoulders model.
I have no neck, yeah. I don't know, man. I got some long hair, beautiful flowing hair. I'm trying to prove my brother wrong that I'm not going bald.
You're going bald, Brandon.
Shave it off, mate. Get it done. See, it's a lot easier, mate. You ain't got to worry about it. It takes less time in the shower, using less hot water. It's
How often do you shave?
That's a bit of a
not you, Brandon. Martin.
Every Sunday night, mate. I shave my head, chant to myself "bald forever," and then.
Do you get a straight razor and blade yourself, or?
No, I just got this Phillips one blade thing. I just use that all over. Yeah, it works a dream. So and then by the time I come to record with you guys on a Friday, the little patches have started to grow back. So yeah, every Sunday night I give it the full once over. How often do you shave, Dickie?
Way less than once a month. No, once a week. This is why, like you're saying, it's real easy. But if you're telling me I've got to shave my head once a week, that's way more than I ever shave anything. There's a little there's a clip for you.
Brandon looking like a young Ryan Giggs here with his hair and everything. So you're wearing a post wrestling hoodie. Where did you get that one from, Brandon? As we go into the plugs to end out the show.
I'm glad that you mentioned that on chopped-tees.com.
I love that I'm the only person not wearing something from the merch store.
Interesting.
And wearing something from what could be considered a rival merch store, which I don't consider a rival merch store because they actually have wrestler gear. But
right. Oh, is it that what they call Black Heart or whatever? Blacksmith. Yeah, are they UK based?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, because they've got a deal with Osprey and stuff, haven't they? But
I wanted New Japan merch, but the New Japan merch is like absolute shit on the actual New Japan shop. So this was like the best, stuff.
Oh, so you can get New Japan merch shipped from Japan to Australia then?
No. I guess so. I don't know. I don't want to buy anything from the New Japan store because it all looks like crap. I'm just saying I bought this from Blacksmith, who I guess shipped it from the UK to Australia.
What about Old Japan?
I don't know anything about All Japan except Davey Boy Smith Jr.
Oh, that's enough All Japan for anybody. So obviously choptees.com, get all your stuff on there. There's tons of merch on there, Poison Rana merch, all the Eagles Don't Hunt Flies merch, What Up Doe, get all your stuff on there. Always great stuff over there. And Poison Rana, obviously we are on their network. Best Match Ever 2024, 2 parts, great shows on this YouTube channel that you're watching this on or on the podcast feed. Obviously go and subscribe to their Patreon. Only £5 a month. Tons of shows on there. What
Up Doe, brand new.
Yeah, but I was just about to get into that. Yeah, What Up, Doe? Cino and B were back this past week with their thoughts on Raw on Netflix, Squid Games, whole load more. Definitely check that out. Always a lot of fun. And obviously, got to plug my own stuff. There's a big fat quiz of the year from 2024. Ed's Poison Rana's YouTube or podcasts or whatever. Always a good laugh. See how you get on with the questions that I came up with and see how you go. You could have fared on that yourself. And any more plugs from you, Dickie Bird?
Nope, you've done them all.
Yep, done them all. Blue Sky, none of us are on Twitter anymore. All join us on Blue Sky. Bushby01. Brandon, what's your tag on Blue Sky?
Brandon from New Jersey, bluesky.org/UAE.
Are you from Dubai? I'm the one that looks like anyway.
Dickie Beard on there, Poison Runner on there. Thanks to everyone for joining us. We will be back next month with part 2, Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you then. Ambrose.